All right, what we have today is the same thing. We have the quadratic formula. Your good friend, the quadratic formula. But today we're going to have complex solutions. The first day we did this, we had real solutions. Today we're going to have complex solutions. We're going to have imaginary numbers underneath the radical sign. You simplified radicals, you simplified square roots the other day that had a negative underneath the radical sign, okay? And we talked about how you really can't have a negative underneath the radical sign, and so they kind of invented a way to make that okay, and that's by calling it an I. So the square root of 49 would be 7, and the negative comes out as an I. So that's what we're going to be dealing with today. Nothing really new except that part. So if you are still struggling with the quadratic formula, today's a good day to kind of help get that, the process in your mind. So the first thing is I'm looking at this, so you might want to write that down, maybe draw yourself 3 columns, make this column kind of big, and write down the quadratic formula. And I'll go kind of slow here while you're doing that. So I do notice that here's the equal sign. There's a 0 over there. All 3 of my terms are over here on the left. It's written in standard form, an x squared and x in a plain number. Okay? So my A is 4. B is -6. C is 7. Of course, you can always pause this video at any time if you need to get caught up. So b squared, remember b squared is always positive. A negative times a negative is a positive. Okay, that's why b squared is always positive. So 4 times the a value times the c value. Okay. So 4ac is whatever 16 times 7 is, and that's 112, or 28 times 4, however you wanted to do it. Okay, and then 2 times a is 4, is 8. So then you're going to come over here, write down the quadratic formula. There is a video. I'm going to try my best to put a link. It's probably a YouTube link to a little video of a little song to help you know, can kind of get it in your head. There's a little song you can sing along to help you write the quadratic formula. I would sing it, but I don't have a very good voice. Okay, so negative b. So if b is -6, then the opposite would be a +6. Okay, that's a place to make a mistake, so be careful with that. Okay, b squared is +36 minus 4ac is 112. Pretty much yesterday when we started the quadratic formula and we had real solutions, we had a negative every time. Today, we're going to get negatives underneath the square root sign. So you're going to have a smaller number minus a bigger number here to get that negative underneath the square root sign. So we'll know how to deal with those. And then 2a is 8. So 6 plus or minus. Take your calculator and do 36 minus 112. 36 minus 112 is -76 over 8. So I can't have a -76. So I go over here. I can't have a negative underneath the square root sign, and 76 is not a perfect square. So I need to play with that a little bit. I'm going to just immediately take that negative out and call it an I. And I'll have that part done. Okay, now I just need to worry about 76. So 76, what will 76 divide by that's on the perfect square list? Almost a 25. If it were 75, it would divide by 25. So it's got to be one of these. I don't know anything that 76 divides by 9. So it's got to be a 4 or a 16. Oh, a 4, it's a 19, and 19 is a prime number, so I know 19 won't break down anymore and cause me any more trouble. So I have an I and a 2 and a 19. I'm going to write it just a little bit neater and make it 2i times the square root of 19. I'm going to come back over here, 6 plus or minus 2i times the square root of 19. Okay, this square root of negative 76 became 2i times the square root of 19 because we used that little box over there to kind of help us out. And then don't forget your 8. That's another careless mistake. I have done that before plenty of times. Then, like we discussed in the other problems, if 2 and 6 and 8, you don't need to circle the I, but if they can all divide by the same number, then you reduce them. 6 and 2 and 8 can all divide by 2. 6 divided by 2, okay, all divide by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3, plus or minus 2 divided by 2 is a 1. You don't have to write the 1. Don't forget your I, though. And then 8 divided by 2 is 4. So that's how that one reduces. See, it says reduced solutions. If you don't reduce it, just rewrite it over here. All right. So we got our first one done with an imaginary number, a complex number. The complex numbers, imaginary numbers, kind of mean the same thing. So I'm looking here. I see that it's in standard form. It's the squared, the x, and the negative 7. A is negative 2. I don't think we've had an A being negative before on any of our prior problems. B is 4. C is negative 7. B squared. Take your B and square it. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times A times C. Okay. 8 times 7, negative 8 times negative 7 is a positive 56. So things are a lot easier if you know your math facts, okay, guys? Gotta practice up on some of those. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Quadratic formula, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared, whoops, b squared minus 4ac over 2a. As I'm doing these notes, it is Tuesday. Some of you seniors are taking your SAT right now. I hope you're doing really good. Just do the best you can. Okay, so if b is 4, negative b would be negative 4. You change the sign. Plus or minus, I don't know who figured this out, that, you know, this formula is what works to help you figure out where this thing crosses the x-axis. It's pretty cool. Okay, 16 minus, because b squared is 16, minus 56 over 2a is negative 4. So that minus came from the minus sign here. 56 is actually positive. Okay? Okay, 16 minus 56 is a negative 30, 40. I had 40 in my mind and then I said 30. Okay, so we're going to go over here and we're going to try to figure out the square root of negative 40. First thing I can do is pull that negative out and call it an I. So now then all I have to worry about is the square root of 40. What will 4 divide by that's on the perfect square list? 1 times 40, 2 times 20, 3, nothing. Oh, 4 times 10, and 5 times 8. Let's use 4 times 10. 4 is a perfect square. Don't use any of those others. It'll make your life more difficult. Okay, there's the I. Don't forget your I. 4 and 10. Okay, the 4 becomes a plain 2. And so you have 2I times the square root of 10. Just write it in a better order. The math folks say that's the order to write it in. So negative 4 plus or minus, we're going to replace the square root of negative 40 with 2i times the square root of 10. 2i times the square root of 10 over negative 4. Then these little guys right here are going to reduce 4, 2, and 4. Sometimes they don't, guys. If we get through all these notes and we don't have one that doesn't reduce, I'll show you an example of one that does not reduce. Okay? Okay, so 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. 2 divided by 2 is a 1, so there's an invisible 1 there. And negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Okay? Actually, I probably should have written this over here in this box. Okay? So looking here at number 3, I see that we need to do a little tiny bit of work first. We need to add the 2x over here to get everything in the on one side of the equal sign. But we need to put that in the correct order. 2x squared, then your x, and then your negative 40. That's a minus 40. Okay? So we're going to use this equation up here. Okay? So A is 2, B is 2, C is negative 40, B squared, take that 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 times negative 40. Okay, 8 times negative 40, 8 times 4 is 32. So add a 0, you get 320, and then it's a negative. Okay? And then 2 times 2 is 4. Okay. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Whoops, didn't need to write that again. Okay, what is negative b? What is negative b? So if b is 2, negative b is negative 2. Let's go hunt for b squared. B squared is 4 minus, I'm just following the formula. I'm going to go hunt for 4ac. It's negative 320 over 4. So this time it looks like we have a positive 324. So hopefully I did that correct. Hopefully I didn't make a mistake somewhere. I'm double checking. 2, 2, negative 40. B squared. 4 times 2 times negative 40. Negative 320. I think I'm okay. Okay, 324. Let's see if we can figure out what the square root of 324 is. It's big enough. It might be a perfect square. So we had 17 the other day. We had 17 times 17 was 289. Okay, I have an old-fashioned calculator in my hand, so I can't do the square root. 18 times 18 times 18 is 324. Okay, so I just kind of had a starting point of 17. 18 times 18 is 324. So this is a perfect square. We don't know those perfect squares like that are bigger. So we have to just kind of play around with it. So it's a regular old 18 without the radical sign. We took the square root of it. Okay, so we're back to kind of almost like the first day, where we just had, we're going to say 2 plus 18 divided by 4, and negative 2 minus 18 divided by 4. So 18 minus 2 is 16. 16 divided by 4 is 4. Make sure you put your x equals. I'm trying to find the x-intercepts. That's going to be a negative 20. A negative 2 and a negative 18 is a negative 20. Come on, pen. Hate it when you act goofy. Okay, and so negative 20 divided by 4 is negative 5. So this one wasn't an imaginary solution. It was a real solution, okay? We didn't have to deal with a negative underneath the square root sign. Okay, let's do this one. They're all on the right, everybody's on one side of the equal sign. It's written in standard form. We're good to go. 584, 584. B squared is 64. 8 times 8 is 64. 4 times 5 times 4. 4 times A times C. I see 20 times 4. I can do 20 times 4 in my head. That's 80. Okay? And then 2 times A. 2 times 5 is 10. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So x equals, okay, I need the opposite of what I have for b. So I have an 8, I need an opposite, negative 8. Okay, b squared is 64 minus 4ac over 2a. 2a is 10. Negative 8 plus or minus 64 minus 80. So take your calculator if you can't do that in your head, and you get a negative 16. So this time I have a negative underneath the square root sign, but 16 is a perfect square, right? So that negative comes out as an I. The square root of 16 is 4. And so I have 4i. Are y'all seeing how I'm making my eyes a little bit, a little tail on the end, or, do your eyes like that, just so they don't look like ones. It'll really, really help you if you'll do that. Okay, so x equals negative 8 plus or minus 4i over 10. Okay, so kind of just forget the i's there for a minute. Just focus on the numbers. Negative 8 will divide by 2. They'll all divide by 2. They're all even numbers. Okay, negative 8 will divide by 2, so that gives you a negative 4. 4 divides by 2, that gives you a 2. And 10 divides by 2, that gives you a 5. They all divided by 2. Every one of them did, okay? And that's all it. Okay, so I said I was going to give you an example of one that doesn't reduce. Let's just pretend we got, let's say we had negative 8. Let's use this one up here. 3i over 10. Everything's changed. Like that 4 is a 3. Well, 8 and 3 and 10 don't divide by the same number. So you would just leave that, okay? Just leave it, okay? Let's say we had them all divided by 2. You can have them all divided by 3. Let's say we had negative 3 plus or minus 6 times the square root of 11 over 12. I'm just making this up. This has nothing to do with the previous problem. Look, they'll all divide by 3. Divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. Not the 11, okay? Just the plain old good old-fashioned numbers. Okay, so negative 3 divided by 3 is a negative 1, okay? Plus or minus 6 divided by 3 is a 2, and then 12 divided by 3 is a 4. Let me do this. Okay, I know this is a mistake some people make. I'm going to recopy this one right here, except that it's a positive 3. Okay, so they all divide by 3. Pen, gotta behave. They all divide by 3, just like a minute ago. Okay, 3 divided by 3 is 1. You have to write this 1 right there. You can't go, oh yeah, Miss Ludicky doesn't write 1s. It's over here that if it's a 1 in front of the square root of 11, I don't have to write it. Just like you don't have to always write a 1 in front of an x. Okay, you don't always have to write the 1 here. So you do have to write the 1 if it's the first term. Okay, I wanted to point that out to you. Okay, so that's doing quadratic formula with imaginary numbers with that negative underneath the square root sign.